The best way to fail at indie game development is to never try. But let's assume you do try. Here's how to fail. You've decided to make an arcade game. Why? Because you finally got burned out trying to fix the bad terrain generation for your dream game. It wasn't your dream game anyway. It was just practice, you know, so you could learn the ropes. But everyone has been saying the first thing you should do in game dev is make a few small arcade games, so it's time to give it a try. Except you ain't gonna just make some stupid arcade game. By golly, you're gonna make the next Tetris. Pac-Man will be long forgotten when you get finished. So the first thing to do is overthink your main mechanic, instead of just coming up with something simple and repeatable that scales in difficulty over time. I mean, the easiest way to fail at making an arcade game is to blow it out of proportion, and we already know you don't have a hard time doing that. Like level design. Do you want basically just one play space that only changes in difficulty with each level? Nah. Add all sorts of levels, and why not introduce new mechanics on each one? Or another example, the only real progress a player should have in an arcade game is their own skill at playing it. So let's just be sure to add a level up system, and a way to save your game, NPCs that you can build relationships with, and items that you can collect over time and craft into more powerful objects, as well as a farming system, and an intricate story with some well animated cutscenes. And while we're at it, let's make the controls just as complex. The more buttons we can add, the better. And I think you get the idea. All you have to do to fail at making an arcade game is just to keep adding stuff. Let your mind flow with whatever pops in there. Carefully crafting a fine-tuned, neatly packaged, simple yet challenging experience will take a high degree of self-aware development that teaches one of the most important lessons: how to avoid scope creep, how to choose quality over quantity. But don't get your priorities mixed up. You want your game to end up as basically Skyrim, Halo, and Minecraft all rolled into one. Skylocraft. Original arcade games were ultimately designed to get you to spend quarters, and how better to do that than to have an enticingly simple and short gameplay loop which becomes difficult very quickly, making you want to try again and again. But quarters practically don't exist these days, so just ignore all that nonsense and make whatever you want. A lot of arcade games have an endless style gameplay where the only goal is to go as far and as long as possible to maybe get the high score. Designing something like this is not that hard. Alright, to be honest, I'm trying to think of something sarcastic to say on how you could mess that up, but you just can't. Honestly, the only way you could mess up making an arcade game is by adding too much crap. I mean, sure, you could add rewards and unlockables and other little things that help the player feel more enticed to play the game, but that's not really adding to the gameplay. And yeah, balancing an arcade game is pretty important, so I could say something witty about making your game perfectly balanced as all things should be, but honestly, after that, if you fail at making an arcade game, then you should probably consider taking up interpretive dance or maybe birdwatching. Why did I even make this video? How to fail at arcade games? You can't! See this picture here, this guy sitting in a chair? This is where I normally have my outro line. And if you follow these instructions carefully, you're bound to succeed at failure. No, that's me. That's me sitting in my chair, writing the script and failing at making a how to fail video. How to fail at arcade games? Ha, you're right. What am I even doing with my life? I mean, I'll still make the video because it at least points out the scope creep lesson thing, but man, if this video does well, nah, bro, nah.